Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Beckwith, and we're basically approaching very rapidly the COP28, which is in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates, and it starts on, I believe, December 30th, and it runs for basically 2 weeks. And it feels a bit weird because this year I'm not going, but I will be doing lots of coverage of the conference, and I'll do a separate video on my main pros and cons on attending the conference. And this year the cons obviously won, and excuse me. But because the COP is coming up, there's all kinds of papers and reports and stuff being released. People have, used sort of a couple weeks before as a deadline for getting their papers out, all the non-governmental organizations, the World Meteorological people, all of the different NGOs and government reports and stuff, because this year is supposed to be global stock take for the COP. And, as a result, different nationally determined contributions to cut greenhouse gases from all the different countries are going to be one of the things talked about a lot. The Pope is going to be there, I believe, the first few days. I think that'll be his first COP ever, and attending in person. And he wrote a new encyclical not too long ago in aid of the conference coming up. And the King Charles, I think, is going to be opening the conference and so on. So there's lots of stuff in the news about it. I mean, the United Arab Emirates, the largest fossil fuel company there, is expanding production greatly, and there's some report leaked that they're not issuing leases for new oil fields until after the COP is over. Of course, the president, the CEO of the oil company, the state oil company, is the head this year of the conference. So, if this isn't fossil fuel capture, I don't know what is. But anyway, that's not the topic of today's video. Today's video, I'm going to talk about one of the reports that just came out because of the COP starting soon, and it's by the Lancet. So for, I believe, about 7 or 8 years, they've put out a report. So this is the 2023 version. It's called the 2023 Report of the Lancet Countdown on Health and Climate Change, the Imperative for a Health-Centered Response in a World Facing Irreparable Harms. Okay, so human health is greatly affected by climate change. There's more and more morbidity, which is disease. There's more and more mortality, which is human deaths from climate change. So you can download the report. You do have to create an account with Lancet in order, it's free, in order to download the report. But I do recommend you having a look at it. So this is their website and the report, basically. So it's the 8th iteration of the report. I've been doing it for 8 years. Okay, it uses the expertise of 114 scientists and health practitioners from 52 different research institutions and UN agencies worldwide to provide the most comprehensive assessment yet. Now, in 2022, the Lancet Countdown warned that people's health is at the mercy of fossil fuels. The report stressed the transformative opportunity of jointly tackling the concurrent climate change, energy, cost of living, and health crises for human health and well-being. This year's report finds few signs of any progress, of such progress. Okay, at the current 10-year mean heating of 1.14 Celsius above pre-industrial, and I've said in previous video, just a few videos ago, that for 2023, then we're going to be at 1.54 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial, where pre-industrial is the second baseline, if you like, the baseline from 1880 to 1920 average. It's not the original baseline. So climate change is increasingly impacting the health and survival of people worldwide. Projections show these risks could worsen steeply with further inaction. But, on the positive side, health matters are gaining more and more prominence in climate change negotiations. There will be sessions at this year's COP on it. It goes on to some more details. Okay, so you can find that on the Lancet website. This is the article here. Okay, so let's talk about the article. These are basically authors, many authors. Okay, so the Lancet Countdown, it's an international research collaboration. The Lancet is a very famous medical journal based in the UK. Okay, so the Lancet Countdown, it independently monitors the evolving impacts of climate change on health and the emerging health opportunities of climate action. So this report, in 2022, the Lancet Countdown warned that people's health is at the mercy of fossil fuels and stressed the transformative opportunity of jointly tackling climate change, energy, cost of living, and health crisis for human health and well-being. But we're just not doing anything, we're doing small things, but nothing to meet the emergency of the situation. 2023, we saw the highest global temperatures in over 100,000 years. Heat records were broken in all continents. For people that are older than 65 years old and infants younger than 1 year are very susceptible to climate-induced health risks. Extreme heat in particular can be particularly life-threatening to the very old and the very young. And people in these age groups over 65 or under a year, they're now exposed to twice as many heat wave days as they would have experienced in 1986 to 2005. Over 60% of the days that reached health-threatening high temperatures in 2020 were made more than twice as likely to occur due to anthropogenic climate change. Heat-related deaths of people older than 65 years increased by 85% compared to 1990 to 2000, substantially higher than the 38% increase that would have been expected had temperatures not changed. So we would have expected an increase because of demographics, but 38%, not 85%. Of course, climate change is damaging the natural and human systems on which people rely on good health. So the global land area affected by extreme drought increased from 18% in 1951 to 60 to 47% in 2013 to 22, jeopardizing water security, sanitation, and food production. A higher frequency of heat waves and droughts in 2021 was associated with 127 million more people experiencing moderate or severe food insecurity compared with 1981 to 2010. It's put millions of people at risk of malnutrition and potentially irreversible health effects. Even people that can access food will, are negatively affected by the lower nutrient value of the food. So eating, a tomato today is not the same as eating a tomato 10 years ago because, the crops that we grow draw nutrients from the soils, and if the soils are depleted and if the temperatures are too high, then the growth cycles of the plants, the crops is changing, and we're getting less nutrition in the part of the plant that we eat. There's also more populations at risk of life-threatening infectious diseases like dengue fever, malaria, vibriosis, and West Nile virus. Not to mention new viruses like COVID, of course. We can expect more and more of these new viruses as the temperature warms and it causes animal migrations and and the interactions of animals and with them among themselves and with people is changing. So there's lots of disease vectors that are occurring which weren't happening before. Also, there's huge economic losses from the global heating. It's increasingly harming livelihoods, limiting resilience, and restricting the funds available to tackle climate change. Economic losses from extreme weather events increased by 23% between 2010 to 14 and 2018 to 22, amounting to US $264 billion in 2022 alone. And a climate report on the US came out specifically just a few days ago, and I'll talk about that in detail in another video. Heat exposure led to global potential income losses worth $863 billion. Labor capacity loss resulting from heat exposure affected low and medium Human Development Index countries the most, exacerbating global inequalities, with potential income losses equivalent to 6.1% and 3.8% of their GDP, respectively. So the higher losses for low Human Development Index, and the next highest for medium. So what is the Human Development Index? Let's have a look at that. Okay, so Human Development, it's the United Nations Development, UN project, the Human Development Index. Okay, so what is it? Well, this shows 1990 to present, and each country of the world is on here. You can mouse over them. So there's Niger is the lowest. Okay, so it's got a human development value of 0.298. Okay, so it covers these 4 factors. Life expectancy at birth, 53.6 years in Niger. Expected years of schooling when somebody who's just born is 3.6 years. The mean years of schooling for the entire population is 1.4 years. And gross national income per capita, so average income of a citizen person there, $1,022. Okay, the lowest country. You can see how, most of these countries have improved, but with climate change, that rising curve is going to start decreasing. The highest country here is Norway, 0.952. Okay, so we've got the high HDI values, low, and then 2 in the middle here. Life expectancy at birth, 82.1 years. Somebody born today in Norway can expect 17.7 years of schooling. The mean years of the population of schooling is 12.7 years. So there's more, it's gone in the right direction. Gross national income per capita, 68,779. Presumably that's put into US dollars. I'm not sure. It doesn't say right here. And you can scroll down and you can find all your country, all the different countries of the world. Okay, so that's the Human Development Index. Okay, it's basically a summary measuring the average achievement in key dimensions of human development, a long and healthy life, being knowledgeable, and having a decent standard of living. The HDI is the geometric mean of normalized indices for each of the 3 dimensions. So you get a number, an index for each of the different factors, and then you square them, you add them all together, you take the square root, that's the geometric mean, and that gives you a number for the country. Okay, so here, long and healthy life, knowledge, decent standard of living, that's the GNI per capita, knowledge, expected years of schooling, and mean years of schooling gives you an education index, and then life expectancy at birth gives you a life expectancy index, and you smush all those together into the Human Development Index. Okay, so check it out. It's really, see where your country lies on here. Okay, so that's a way of looking at the effects of climate change on the health of people in various countries, whether there be low, medium, or high Human Development Index countries. The multiple and simultaneously rising risks of climate change are amplifying global health inequities and threatening the very foundation of human health. Health systems are increasingly strained. 27% of the surveyed cities declared concerns over their health systems being overwhelmed by the impacts of climate change. Often due to scarce financial resources and low technical and human capacity, the countries most vulnerable to climate impacts also face the most challenges in achieving adaptation progress, reflecting the human risks of an unjust transition. Only 44% of low HDI countries and 54% of medium HDI countries reported high implementation of health emergency management capacities in 2022, compared with 85% of very high HDI countries. Okay. Additionally, low and medium HDI countries had the highest proportion of cities not intending to undertake a climate change risk assessment in 2021. Okay, so there's a lot of inequalities, not surprisingly. These inequalities are aggravated by the persistent failure of the wealthiest countries to deliver the promised modest annual sum of $100 billion to support climate action in those countries defined as developing within the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. Okay, so this is loss and damages. This was the whole key topic of COP27 last year. And of course, there's moral issues. I mean, those countries that have historically contributed the least to climate change are bearing the brunt of the health impacts. Okay, so the human costs of persistent inaction are getting worse and worse. This is interesting, okay? The growing threats experienced to date are early signs and symptoms of what a rapidly changing climate could mean for the health of the world's populations. Okay, if you're following my videos, you know that over the next few years, it's going to be just awful. The temperature rises, the ocean temperature rises. You know, we're getting heat waves in countries that are going into their summers right now. South America, Australia, right? They're happening much earlier this year. No surprise because of all that missing Antarctic sea ice. 2 million square kilometers of sea ice missing. Of course, the heating is going to be tremendously enhanced with all that missing ice, which would have reflected solar radiation in the southern hemisphere as we move into summer, and now that heat energy is being absorbed into the oceans. This is an interesting stat, probably worth remembering. Every second, there's 1,337 tons of CO2 emitted into the Earth's atmosphere. Okay? Every single second. And remember, I showed you what 1 ton of CO2 looks like. You know, a big hot air balloon size of CO2, basically. So each moment of delay, each second worsens the risks to people's health and survival on this planet. Okay, it's a good number to remember, 1,337 tons of CO2 emitted per second. Okay, so in the report this year, sort of doing change analysis, how is it different from last year? Well, new projections reveal the dangers of further delays in action. Every tracked health dimension is worsening as the climate changes. If global mean temperature continues to rise to just under 2 degrees Celsius, according to Hansen, that's likely to occur by 2038. Annual heat-related deaths are projected to increase by 370%. And it says by mid-century. That's when this report used data saying it would be 2 degrees Celsius by mid-century, but I'm saying 2038. You know, I think Hansen will be correct, I think, assuming no substantial progress on adaptation. Heat-related labor loss, you know, mostly people working outside, is projected to increase by 50%. Heat waves alone could lead to about half a billion additional people experiencing moderate to severe food insecurity by 2041 to 60, aggravating the global risk of malnutrition. Life-threatening infectious diseases are also projected to spread further, with the length of coastline suitable for Vibrio pathogens expanding by 17 to 25%, and the transmission potential for dengue fever increasing by about a third, 36 to 37% by mid-century. Okay, when you see by mid-century, by this date, move that up. It's going to be sooner than what this report is saying. As risks rise, so will the costs and challenges of adaptation. Okay, poor accounting for nonlinear responses, tipping points, cascading, and synergistic interactions could render these projections conservative. Okay, so at least they talk about that. We're basically in a world accelerating in the wrong direction. The health risks of a 2 degrees C hotter world, again, Hansen thinks that'll be 2038, underscore the health imperative of accelerating climate change action. Okay, so, and I'm not going to go on. I mean, it talks about how much fossil fuel there is. It says global fossil fuel investment increased by 10% in 2022. Reduced a bit for the COVID years, but it's higher than ever, reaching over 1 trillion. This is direct fossil fuel investment. Indirect subsidies are about another 6 trillion. So we're talking $7 trillion a year going to the fossil fuel industry. And the banks, across 40 banks, the banks are going nuts in lending money to the fossil fuel industry. So your bank is like shooting you in the foot, destroying your future by putting all this money into fossil fuels. Okay, so there's lots more details. I just want to have a look. You can read the report, so let's just have a look at some of the figures. Okay. So this is showing 1990 to 2020, 30-year period. These are low health development index countries. So these would be countries down here in the red in the bottom of the HDI, Health Development Index. It's Human Development Index. Okay, so low HDI countries, this is annual hours per person of heat stress. Moderate stress, okay, versus high stress versus extreme stress. You can see the trends are all increasing. Medium HDI countries, the trends are also increasing, and people are actually even more exposed than the low HDI countries. And then high HDI countries, there's much less exposure, and very high ones, even less. This is a problem because people in the high HDI countries are, these are the countries that are powerful, that go to climate conferences, influence processes, and they're being affected the less. And they were most responsible for causing the cumulative emissions, causing existing climate change. So there's a huge justice inequity here. Okay, this is population weighted days of exposure to temperatures above the 84th percentile. And you can see small island developing states, Africa. Okay, you can see all the different countries here. It's hard to match the colors here to the colors here. You'd have to expand the graph, but basically it's they're all increasing. Almost no exception to that. Let's go down here. Okay. This is a change in the number of months of extreme drought per year from 1951 to 60. So the mean over that 10 years to the mean here over the most recent 10 years. And you can see change the number of months of extreme drought. So like, any of the orange, the red, the dark red, these are like 8 months, 8 to 10 months, 10 to 12 months. There's regions that are undergoing heat stress year-round, and those regions, you know, as these trends continue, these are the regions of the planet that would become uninhabitable to humans being outside, working outside, living in these regions. Right here along the Gulf here, some in Australia. Okay, so Africa is hit the hardest, South America hit hard, but other regions are coming red as well. The next figure here, percentage point change in people reporting moderate to severe food insecurity due to heat wave days. And you know, you can see from 2014 to 2021, basically, there's more and more, you know, this is 1% of people up to almost 4% of people reporting moderate to severe food insecurity. And this is due to heat wave days, and this is due to drought. This is global household prevalence of air conditioning. You know, air conditioning is not just a convenience, it's becoming a survival necessity in many places of the world. So this is the CO2 emissions coming from air conditioning, increased use of air conditioning. This is air conditioning electricity consumption globally, how it's spiking up, and that's in terawatt hours. And this is households with air conditioning. Okay, the proportion of households with air conditioning. So this is about 20% up to about 35%. Okay, so air conditioning is about the only way to escape heat waves, you know, in many places, especially if you live in a city. And don't forget the heat island effect. You know, living in a big city is going to be much, much hotter than in rural areas. This is the carbon intensity of the energy system, both globally and by HDI country group. So for example, low HDI countries, this is CO2, tons of CO2 per terajoule, okay, energy intensity. Okay, so let's have a look, some of these others. This is the mortality rate attributable to PM 2.5, which are the particles of diameter less than 2.5 micron. And these particles are exceptionally dangerous because they can go deep inside the lung and get lodged in the alveoli of the lungs, where the air is exchanged between the human body and the environment. And you know, particles getting lodged in there can cause cancers, etc., etc. So these are the most dangerous particles, and this is HDI level, very, very high levels to high, to medium, to low. And the mortality rates, you can see how the mortality rates, what they are, and what from the different sectors that they're coming from. So a lot of things are put per HDI. This is the emissions of greenhouse gases on farms associated with the consumption of agricultural products, production and net imports per person by HDI. So what you can see is the breakdown here. The yellow is cow and buffalo meat. The light blue is dairy products, pig meat, poultry, you know, etc. Rice, cereals. Okay, so you can see the different growth, food consumption patterns in different countries. The deaths per 100,000 inhabitants attributable to a dietary risk factor. So deaths attributed to, so diets high in red meat, for example, So it's comparing just 2019 to 2020, okay, the changes, and you can see, high in red meat, high in processed meat, high in milk, and this is along this axis is deaths per 100,000 people. So the type of diet is very important to people's health. No surprise there. This is the national greenhouse gas emissions per capita per person from the care sector in 2020, kilograms of CO2 equivalent per person from the care sector. So you can see where it's like super high, and where countries where it's lower. So the countries that are affected the most by climate change are causing the least of they're having the lowest impact. Monetized losses from premature mortality due to air pollution. Okay, I don't think I'll talk about details of every one. Employment numbers in renewable. Okay, let's just be selective. Total lending to the fossil fuel on the left and green sectors on the right between 2010 and 2021. Okay, so the green sectors are going up, and this is amount of funding from different banks, but they're way lower than what is going to fossil fuels. Fossil fuels subsidies have just gone through the roof in the last few years. Studies linking health impacts to attributable climate changes. This is a number of studies, and so you can see, food security and the HDI level countries. Infectious diseases has gone way up. Okay, so it's a number of studies in the exposed population. So HDI level very high. This is the population in millions and the number of studies. Okay, so the number of studies keeps going up and up and up. So the effects of climate on health are becoming more and more recognizable. Okay, that was that. This one here. Engagement with the health co-benefits of climate change mitigation in the tweets of 41 international organizations. Okay, so from 2010 to 2023, there's more and more information being sent on Twitter in tweets from 41 different international organizations. They're talking about the effects of climate change on health. So people are becoming more and more aware, so it's heading in the right direction. Okay, so I think I'll stop here. Again, this is the 8th report version of the 2020. This is the 2023 report of the Lancet Countdown on Health and Climate Change, the imperative for a health-centered response in a world facing irreversible harms. And this is a great statement. In 2022, this publication warned that people's health is at the mercy of fossil fuels. Okay, and it stressed that we need to transform things to tackle climate change, energy, cost of living, and the health crisis for human health and well-being. Okay, since that report was put out, and this is the latest report, the new report, and there's been almost no progress. Okay, I guess you're probably not surprised at that. Okay, so anyway, thank you for listening. Please go to my website, paulbeckwith.net, and donate to my PayPal account to support my research and videos. As I'm sure you're aware, I haven't monetized my YouTube channel. I don't want things to be interrupted constantly by ads during my videos. And the only reason I can do that is because I get the donations to support my work from PayPal. So please consider, setting up a monthly thing. I also have Patreon is another way if you want to support my work. So for everybody that is supporting my work, thank you. I appreciate it greatly. And I'll just keep the videos coming and try to get as much information out to you. And your job is basically to, share and try to promote my channel so I get more people watching and more people aware of what's coming down the pipeline, so to speak, as I join the dots on abrupt climate system change. So thanks again for listening, and bye for now.